Men love to wonder, said Ralph Waldo Emerson, and that is the seed of science. I am reminded of that quote whenever I am with Raymond Moody. For half of his life and counting, the good doctor has pursued the big question of religion, science, and philosophy. What happens when we die? In the early 70s, Dr. Moody, then a philosophy professor trained at the University of Virginia, began to explore the stories of people who had almost died and crossed the line into a heavenly realm. These stories have been told throughout human history, but Dr. Moody was the first to dissect them and discover their similarities. He called them near-death experiences. When he wrote about these in a book, Life After Life, the field of near-death studies began. I have written 4 books with Raymond. I even helped him move into his home here in rural Alabama, so I felt very comfortable interviewing him in his living room. But even as well as I know Raymond, I was surprised by some of his answers. You've had your own near-death experience. And based on those two things, the fact that you've heard all of these stories and you have your own story to tell, what do you think happens when we die?
What I think happens when we die is that we enter into another state of existence or another state of consciousness that is so extraordinarily different from the spatial and temporal frame of reality in which we exist in the physical world, that the language we have is not yet adequate to describe this other state of existence or consciousness.
When we leave our mortal body, how do we leave it? What do we look like?
People say that in the realm of existence they enter into upon the point of death, that there's no such thing as physicality as we experience in it in this realm. It's not that they have a physical body. It's rather that they have some other sort of vehicle which they find it very difficult to describe, but that it does have a form, that it carries a personality, but that it's just entirely impossible to describe it in terms of or analogously to the kind of body that we have. I've heard it characterized as a spiritual body, for example. That's a term that I hear from a lot of people.
So when they come back, they're changed, they're transformed.
There are a number of transformations we see with people who come back from near-death experiences. The most prominent one is that whatever they had been chasing before, whether knowledge or fame or power or money or any of these other things, that when they come back, they say that the most important thing we can do while we're alive is to learn how to love.
How has this knowledge affected your life?
The most powerful one to me has been that it really has convinced me of the importance of love. And I try in every day to be loving to people. I genuinely do try in my day-to-day interactions with people that I try to keep in mind that I will be seeing this again and that I will be seeing this event not from the way I'm seeing it now through these eyes, but that I will be seeing this event through the eyes of the people with whom I've interacted.
How do you think the world would change if you were able to prove that there was an afterlife?
Many people get to thinking about this and they think, oh, if that were the case, then we'd all love each other and there would be nirvana and there wouldn't be any problems in the world. But I don't think it would bring people to a state of, complete love and make everybody saints and so on. I honestly don't accept that. But there is one thing that I am absolutely sure that a rational proof of life after death would do. And that would be that it would fundamentally alter the structure of the human mind. If we could have a rational proof of life after death, then human beings would never again be the same, because the entire structure of our cognitive mind would be expanded. What I can honestly tell you from the bottom of my heart is that I accept that there is a God and I have a relationship with God and I talk with Him all the time. What I honestly don't know yet from the rational point of view is whether life after death is in His plan or not. And it may well be, if you think about it, that God has something in mind for us that is even more remarkable than what we might call a life after death. In other words, I love God, have a trusting relationship with God. He hasn't told me anything yet about an afterlife. I'm just going to have to wait and see.
The next day, I went back to Dr. Moody's to talk to him about his next field of study, shared death experiences. He feels this subject may provide the best answer yet to the question, what happens when we die? Simply stated, shared death experiences take place when bystanders at the deathbed have the same experience as the person who is dying. Sometimes they say that they went up a tunnel or had a life review with the dying person.
Now, the implication of this, if you think about it, is that this really does throw a monkey wrench in the traditional way of debating about near-death experiences. Right. Because what the physiologists tell us, who say that these experiences are hallucinatory, is that as the person is dying, the oxygen supply to their brain is lowered, and hence they have these hallucinatory effects. But if that's true, why would the bystanders have the same kind of experience?
Sure, well, why would they?
That's very difficult to explain.
Yeah.
And I think that once these findings come out and are thoroughly understood by the public, we're going to be into an entirely new dimension of discussing near-death experiences, because that old standby that, oh, this is just hallucinations caused by brain damage, that's out the window with these empathic death experiences.
Now, if you don't mind me saying this, you and your family had a shared death experience at the bedside of your mother.
I did indeed. In 1994, when my mother was dying, my wife and I and my sisters and one of my brother-in-laws were there, and all had astonishing experiences at the moment my mother died.
I think it's one of the most exciting fields to study.
Oh yes, Paul.
The study of afterlife studies, I think this is one of the most exciting
Paul,
areas
this
to learn.
is the new frontier of knowledge, because now we have not only this awareness that these near-death experiences are not confined to the people who almost die, but kind of leak out by whatever unknown means to the people standing around. And it is a very paradoxical and astonishing thing to wonder what is going on here.